Okay, so as we have 1 minute left, I would like to say hello for everybody else who joined. Welcome to the workshop session. It's named How to Measure and Visualize Your Organization Culture to Improve Your Working Environment. And we have Martin and Pascal who will hold this session today. And I don't know, that's the stage, I guess it's yours now.
Thanks.
I see we have only 5 people joining so far. I understood there would be a few more.
It's okay. We'll be happy to run this with 5 people. But there's going to be maybe a different dynamic in that case. So maybe if I can ask everyone if you will be asked to participate in some group discussions, and also if there's only a few of us, then it might make sense to open up your webcams maybe, and also your microphones.
I will at least ask everybody to unmute, and I also ask everybody to start the video. And if you have a video, then it would be possible to do that.
So we can see who we are talking to. So this will become different. This is not a mass lecture in that way, or a webinar. It's more like interactive, I hope. And now we get to the real test. Are people online actually active or not? Yes, we have 1 live viewer at least.
Yeah, I'm having some technical difficulties now. I'm trying to switch from mobile to actually PC.
Oh,
okay.
Good luck.
Yeah, this will probably not work out properly in the mobile.
Let's see. Let's wait a moment and see how many people we are actually getting online. Now 7. Yay! Could be worse. So while we're waiting, we might, Pascal and I, we might introduce ourselves. We are 2 coaches working in Finland for Agile 42. So we've been doing quite a lot of these things, organizational, cultural kind of scans and cultural assessments. It's one of those things, if your culture isn't, Agile compatible, then it's not gonna work out when you try. You need to start by changing your culture if you need to make your change permanent. And that's why this is an important topic and why we wanted to run this as a workshop. So we are going to show you over the next couple of hours all of these things that we have prepared. Pascal, would you like to say a few words about yourself, where you come from and why you are here?
Yes, hello. My name is Pascal Papathemelis. So if some of you have joined yesterday my talk about Agile portfolios, then you might have heard a bit of what I've been doing. So I'm working as a coach also. And yeah, we've been working also with Martin and also with some other guys on improving culture, organizational culture, and some of our customers, and supporting them on that. And we would like to share some of the methodologies for you guys so that you get a bit of insight. Perhaps you can also do something and start something like that on your own, in your own working environment.
Yeah. Yes, thanks. And my name is Martin from Weissenberg, working with Pascal in Finland, and I've spent, I think, at last count, I had collected more than 10,000 coaching hours. Need to update that for a while, but I've been an Agile coach since more than a decade, and have seen quite a bit of different companies, different organizations, and also, funnily enough, almost the same culture everywhere, at least in the bigger companies, which is makes it maybe easier to see some patterns and see if you can apply the same things in multiple different contexts. Okay, how should we start sharing this? If I do the sharing and I manage, or would you like to Pascal to do to be the Zoom puppet master, or should I be Zoom puppet master?
Yeah, I just shared on the chat of Zoom. I shared the link to the Miro board. So if you can go and have a look there, and the password would be agile_culture and culture with 3. And I see already the first people have been able to enter into Zoom. Thank you very much. And sorry, into Miro. That seems to be very good. So,
yes.
Yes. So if I.
So where should we join? I didn't hear that part.
Sorry.
Where we should join, in the Miro dashboard or?
There is a Miro link in the
Zoom chat.
Zoom chat.
Okay.
So by clicking that, it will ask you then for a password.
Oh, you see the password. I will copy everything again.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't
so
see.
Probably you don't see the
link.
history if you joined a bit later.
Okay.
And now we have one more person, so presumably we need to get that again. Need to keep an eye open for people joining. Cool. So welcome over to the Miro board, and it's kind of important that you access Miro separately, because then you can also interact. But we are going to share it, our own screens on Zoom. So Pascal, would you mind, since you are the host, would you mind either sharing or handing over the host to me? Your choice.
Yeah. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Good.
Works for me.
I move the Zoom controls a bit out of the way. Yeah. So we have this Miro board, and if I zoom into, we have the different frames. Yeah, today, so we will be talking about a way for you how to measure and visualize the organizational culture, and how you can improve the working environment in your own environment. There are contact details. If you have any problems, I send an email to the participants beforehand. You can reach out to us through the Zoom chat. And then you can also send an SMS to me. I have my mobile phone here. So then it would be possible to react to that. And as we want to work together, actually that we will be having now 2.5 hours. Was that right? From the organizers, we will end at 12:30. So the time we did not add here.
I can do
Martin
that.
is doing that. We would like you to mute your microphone, but now we are not that many, so having the microphone on might be also sufficient. We also have a parking lot here on the right. So if you have any question that you want to get answered, you can write your question on the.
We could add that you are allowed, and we would expect you to just raise your hand and ask that question when there seems to be a convenient time to do so. Okay, so you can just ask away. However, some of the questions we are going to capture and then put on the parking lot, and then we might return to, or we should return to them later. Okay, There might be other questions where we are able to answer immediately, but also if you don't feel that there's a good opening for asking that question, then you can just write a sticky note and put it on the parking lot. Okay, and then we'll put return to the parking lot towards the end of this session.
Exactly. So just add your question there, and then we will have a look into that later. We are not so many people, and it might be also could be good for verbal communication if you enable your camera so that we can like see each other. If you have any other notifications or things like popping up in order to avoid the distraction that you might have, it might be good to turn them off. We have those frames. We try to have locked them all. This seems not to be locked.
No, I just opened it so we can edit it. Don't lock it. Don't touch it.
Yeah. It's unlocked. So don't move them around. So because that might be a bit of problematic. Raising your hand might help you take notice of if somebody wants to talk, so that we can like a bit don't talk all at the same time. We will have time boxing sessions for the breakout, and for that reason it might be good, like it would help us to come back on time so that we don't let the other people waiting. Any questions to those working agreements? Is there something missing?
I could say that the time box is something that we can add. It's the same time box for everyone on the Miro board. It works like this. I set the timer running now. I'll stop that and remove it. But anyway, this is how it works. So we'll manage the timers for you, but please keep an eye on the timer. We will use breakout rooms in Zoom, the breakout rooms feature, and we will put you in rooms, and keep an eye on the timers, please.
Okay, if I go further on, our content for today would be like we are now in the opening. We will do a small warm-up in culture. We will do first exercise, collect some data, and then a second exercise to collect some data. And then we will look a bit on theory, introduce you to the competing values framework. And then we will debrief on the exercises. Based on the information we then know from the theory, what do those findings from the exercises look like? And then at the end, we will talk a bit of how could you use this kind of visualization and the data that you can collect in order to improve your organization. And at the end, we then do a closing. How many of you do know Miro from before? So there are those shapes. If you see my screen, they're like a select arrow. There are different templates. Probably we don't need that. There is a text. There are sticky notes.
That's
so
the important one.
And you can select the color you want to add sticky notes. So you just click here and then add the sticky note there, and then you can write like the specific text that you want to add. There are also shapes, so different shapes that you can have here. You can take them also and move them in, and also add text to the shapes. And you can also color the shapes by having here the different colors and changing the different attributes of the shapes. So that's like you get here by selecting the shape. Then we also have arrows to connect things. There is a free pen, probably we will not need that. Comments. This one is to create frames. We will not need that. This one is to upload, and there are also other actions.
Upload pictures. You can also paste in pictures. So sorry, there's a couple of things I would like to add to this. One is we are mostly going to use sticky notes. So that's the main tool that you will need to learn to use. The others not so much. Also, at one point, we are going to ask you to copy a picture and paste it in, and that's just the basic copy and paste exercise. Yeah. It should work okay.
basically what I've been doing, I've been dragging the picture, selecting the picture on the
Desktop,
as a
computer
file and
desktop.
dragging it in, and then resizing it accordingly. That works very well.
Exactly.
Yeah. And here on the bottom, there are mainly things related to the session. In collaboration, you can like have frames. Here we see all the frames that we have if you want to navigate faster at the end to the different places instead of scrolling around. Good. As a warm-up, I would like to ask you, and now if I zoom a bit out, we have the different maps here. And if you go here on the top, you will see there are lots of many small characters. So the idea would be, you know, to grab a character. So if I take that now, in my case, copy it, and then I go, and I'm located actually in Helsinki. So I will paste my character here where there is Helsinki. So, and then I can add also a note or a comment below it or some text to write that is like Pascal here next to it. So please use some time. I'll give you, how much time do you think? 2 minutes? Is that enough? Or 1 minute?
I need to bring these to the front. Give me a second. You don't disappear behind the map. Okay. Go ahead.
Also, if you feel with the mirror that there are too many mouses going on, there is on the top, there is an arrow to hide the collaboration cursors, then you don't see the cursors where they are located or where they are moving.
You can also see that some people have their names here, like Gediminas and I think Leonard. And then the rest of you are guests. So we have guest designer and guest painter and guest researcher and so on. So that depends on whether you have a Miro account. There's a free account or this is obviously they have paid features. It's a freemium business approach there. But I just wanted to say that some of you are anonymous because you don't have those accounts. So that's okay.
Good.
Not a problem.
If we have a look, we see that most of the people probably are located in Vilnius. Is that Vilnius there? And yeah, then we have 2 people probably in Tallinn. And there are 2 people in Finland. And there is nobody from elsewhere.
Fair enough.
Okay. If I move further on, we have the first exercise, or first kind of warm-up related to the culture. If you see this Mentimeter, you can take also your mobile phone and answer. There is also this QR code. Go there and just write any kind of word that comes into your mind in regards to when you hear about culture. And I will go and present the results in a moment.
Feel free to enter multiple words because there's only there's not so many of us. Then you know.
See, we have already 4 answers. If you add a few more. So if I change my sharing settings.
Can you copy in a quick screenshot here so we can see it in, and also have it recorded in Miro for the future?
Okay. Do the copy.
That also means now it's not so useful to add more words, right?
Take away this one, and then I find my screenshot. One moment. So I now drag and drop it here. And make it a bit bigger. So we have ways of working is the biggest, the one that has been entered more times, but then we have knowing each other, strong interactions, supportive, lagging, empowering, people, behavior, intelligence, intangible, invisible, motivating, share value, understanding. Thank you, Martin, for.
Yes. Whoever has the selected the link, please let it go so I can move it out. Mr. Guest or Mrs. Guest, as the case may be.
Now it's unlocked.
Yeah. Where did it go? Okay, please continue. I'll move this.
Yeah. So then the next thing would be in groups, and now I need to see quickly how many people do we have. We have about 8 people, so I think we will do like 2 groups. So breakout rooms, one moment. And I will assign those randomly, one moment.
I guess we have 9 people. It's 11 minus 2 of you.
Okay, so perhaps do we make them 3 groups of 3?
It's up to you, I guess.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
And one more person have joined, so there are
Okay.
12 of us and 10
Good.
participants.
I'll go into the chat and I'll share that again.
Do we want to have Gabriele on some room, or do we leave her outside? I assign Gabriele also. Okay, I will open all rooms, and here we go. And if you need any help, Martin, I think we forgot to ask what is the exercise.
Yes, I think we did.
So I assign you in one room and I go to the other room and then we do.
Yes. Let's do that.
When joining the rooms, coming back.
Okay. Sorry for ripping you out. This is how Zoom works, by the way. So ripping people out, so we just have to put the timer on it or to close the rooms at some point. Now we'll try to do a better job of putting a timer and also kind of making sure that, yes, giving maybe clearer instructions. So, but we had, at least in our group, we had a good discussion. And we had a couple of stuff, a couple of sticky notes, and I see that also the other group pulled up a couple of post-its or stickies.
Yes.
So should we quickly
I'll
summarize?
share my screen again, one moment, then I'll go to Miro. And here you go. Do you want to? So, yes, somebody want to share what you have been writing there? There was a shared mindset of values of people. And the yellow group, values that everyone agrees on, way of working based on common values. People can't always articulate the culture, starts with the leader. So, Martin, any reflections on that? And then shared values of people working in the group.
Yeah, so we had the small sticky notes here in the middle, and maybe I can summarize then. So basically, what we agreed to, this is based on common values that are kind of agreed on. They are implicit. People can't always write them out or say what they are, but people are very good at picking them up because we are social animals. And they inform our way of working. And we also noted that the leadership style has a strong impact on the culture. So if the leader is a commanding leader or a democratic leader or a coaching leader, he or she will set the tone, and this will eventually trickle down into the culture and into the ways of working. That's maybe a good summary. Did I get everything? Or should we? Do we want to add, Nadia and Violetta? Do you want to add anything?
No, that was really good summary.
No, I think, yeah.
Good. And anything from the other two groups? I think there was group number 2. You had probably the one, was it like on the right, shared values?
Yes, I can comment. We just tried to bring our ideas and form one sticky note for that. So this is it. We think that it's about shared values of people and working in the group. So it's not about organization. It's not about some kind of formal thing, but you can have also culture in different kind of things. So we call it group. It can be organization, it can be family, it can be whatever group you have around. So this was our thought on that.
And the third group?
Yeah, for us, yeah. For the culture is made like shared mindset and the values of people and how they act upon it and how they think about certain things. And
good. If we go on how to measure, perhaps we start from the third group and go upwards.
So yeah, about the measuring, we didn't
Yes.
come any like to conclusions, but we know like we should write down the common values and things how to demonstrate those values and then assess based on that.
It's because you can't just measure values or mindset and so on and so forth. So, but first of all, it was important, as we discussed, is to make sure that the shared values are really shared, in the sense that not every separate person thinks that these are the shared values, but they're actually in fact different. So make those values explicit, discuss of what behaviors demonstrate those values or what behaviors demonstrate the opposite of those values, and then measure that.
Thank you. What about group 2?
I guess it's our group. So in our group, we had 3 people and we kind of had some kind of advantage here because we had been in Tom Gilb's workshop, 8 hours workshop about quantification of things. So I really, encourage you to search our Agile Lithuania YouTube channel and see that workshop recorded. So so we thought that it should be split in more granular things, and like behavior and shared understanding, we have 2 groups. And then we started thinking what can go beyond those groups. So we have communication and knowledge sharings, and of course there could be more things we can measure, but we had short on time, so we thought and again, communication can be split in more detailed things like how much meetings do you have, how much knowledge sharing sessions do you have, how much people participate in those knowledge sharing sessions, do you proactively communicate some kind of things, how transparent your communication is. And you can see we can continue this list, much more things to think up, but the idea, I hope it's quite clear that we need to split those bigger things in smaller and see what kind of measures we can put there. And about sharing understanding, we also thought that surveys can help just to see how you understand values which are written, like our team has said, they should be written, but still you need to measure that, whether people understand the same way one or another word or phrase or sentence or whatever it is. So this is our thought.
Thank you. And group number 1?
Maybe someone else would like to summarize quickly.
I guess, yeah.
I can maybe do it. So we discussed that basically you can see how people are behaving in certain situations, and the word that we came up with is anthropology. So you kind of observe how people behave in certain situations in the company in general. So you kind of see it.
Thank you. Good points.
Before we move on too far, there's one thing I'd like to add here. It's something called, there exists something called an organizational culture assessment instrument, an OK. And we will look later. This is there are different ways of assessing your culture. We will look at one such way in a moment. But this is something that exists, and we'll return to that later. I just wanted to point it out at this stage. Thank you.
Good. Thank you. We have a questionnaire. And basically, in that questionnaire, we are interested to make yourself to see certain things like, first select what organization you would like to consider, and then what product would that be. And we don't need the information of that, but it's just for you to note it down and make it clear for yourself. And then give points of how important innovation would be in your organization from 1 to 10. How good would be teamwork? How good would be important would be to follow a plan, and how competitive you want that organization to be in the market that it's in. So just go there and quickly, every one of you give the points from 1 to 10, and we will look at the results soon. Still see that there are no responses.
Do we need to evaluate our own organization or whatever we want?
If you want to make it for real, or you can think also some other organization. It's up to you. It would be more realistic if you take a real organization. I probably need to try this out myself because I don't see any results coming in, although I've tested it.
There are many questions, so wait a little bit.
Oh, now they're coming in. Okay, we have some results. So I copy paste the answer to the next frame. So we have had something like for innovation close to 8. For working together, it's like more than 8. Then following a process, and it's like close to 6 point something, and market is a bit more than 8. That is like kind of a graph we have received here, if you see on my screen. Thank you very much for that. And yes, second
what's the
exercise, we want
average?
to collect some data.
Sorry, Pascal, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
What's the average so on a scale from 1 to 10, everything was more important than average? Is that...
You mean average of all 4 together?
No, what I meant here is that everything, if 5 is the average on this scale, then
Yes.
everything is more important than
Yes.
average. There's nothing that is less important than average.
True.
Yes. Okay, that's an interesting viewpoint, I think.
I mean, you see here on the circle, there is like everything above 6 already.
Yeah.
Perhaps in the next time I can try to make the results so that it plots even the values in real next to it.
We'll see.
That would, yeah. Improvement. Okay, we have a second exercise, which for this one, we would like to collect some data. And that is working this way, that we have a spreadsheet for you. And that spreadsheet, you need to copy. And then hopefully all of you have a Google account. Copy that into your own space, and then start filling it out. The link for that sheet is there. We can also give you the link if you want in the chat.
Good idea. Let me do that. Or are you doing it already? Yeah.
You can do it.
Okay, cool.
And that, if you want, you can even download the sheet, but it does not work as well if you have Excel. There are like some tweaks in at the end plotting. Here is also a paper version. If you have fully problems, then there is this PDF. You can try to do it with pen and paper if you want. That will take a bit more time to fill out. But first, let's see that everybody has been able to copy it. Does somebody have any problem on copying this? I will give you instructions then about the filling out once you have copied it. Let's do so that if you are ready with the copy, move your mouse into the Agile 42 logo there of this frame. Then we will know that. And Martin can zoom out and see if their mouse is outside.
Yep. We have 1 left, 2 left, 1 left, 0, and we have touchdown.
Okay, thank you. So then, if you give me a moment, I will open the file and tell you like how that works. So I will stop sharing and share my screen for the other application. I'll do it now this way. I'll maximize this one. So you see there is this kind of template here, which I've asked you to copy. In your own copy.
We're not seeing your screen.
We are seeing you.
We are not seeing your screen.
Oh,
You're
yeah.
sharing, screen sharing.
Do you see it now?
Okay. Yes, now it works.
So
Thank you.
this is the template which I ask you to copy. Don't edit this one, edit your own copy. And there are questions here, or sentences. And always there is like a group of 4 sentences. For this case, dominant characteristic in the organization. And you have 100 points to divide among those 4 sentences. There is no right or wrong answer. This is relative. And if you answer this perhaps tomorrow, you might feel different. Just don't think too much, put your current feeling about how you feel at this time of the moment. And then you can put here like your points. And then I have 31 missing, and that would give me 100 points. So the colors here kind of help you. And you do that for every thing. Then you get, oh, if I copy the previous one, then we get some more different values. So if you have done that for every group, there are 6 of them. So you need to divide 600 points. At the end, there would be a summary. Those are summarized based on the different category. And then there would be a graph drawn here. So we'll give you, probably you need 10 minutes. And perhaps we give you also extra time for a break. Would that be a good to combine it with a break, Martin? What do you think?
Sounds like a plan. So we should give maybe total 15 minutes. And because it's now 5 minutes to 11, let's continue at 10 minutes past 11. Should that be mentioned previously about something that is called an OKI, or an organizational culture assessment instrument. Now, this is a term used by management consultants and actually also some organizational researchers to basically identify there are different ways of looking at culture. Okay, so there's many different dimensions you can look at. For example, openness to new ideas. You can look at things like proactivity versus reactivity, the masculinity of a culture, the power distance, meaning how okay is it to basically that others are making decisions on your behalf. And so generally, I'll remove that one. Generally, what we have here in front of us is one such organizational culture assessment instrument. There's two guys, Kim Cameron and what's his name now, Quinn. Well, Cameron and Quinn have done research on universities in the US, and they found that the two most important dimensions are basically internal. The focus, are you introvert or extrovert? And that's what we have here on the horizontal scale. Or and the other one is flexibility versus stability and control. So in this case, I mean, introvert and extrovert should be self-explanatory, I hope, but flexibility and discretion versus stability and control may need a little bit more explanation. Stability and control means that you want to have centralization, you want to have control over what's happening. You can do that in different ways. Budgets are great for this. You can have backlogs, you can have various IT tools, for example, that kind of consolidate information. This is a bit slower, but you get coherent results, okay? Up here on the other side, flexibility and discretion means basically that people have flexibility to choose what they want to do. And they have the discretionary decision power to make choices on their own. And that's great because it gives you faster feedback. People can make decisions without having to go back to the base and basically consolidate information, and then everyone decides, or certain people decide what to do. In this case, every single individual employee have the right to basically make decisions. And that gives you a lot of flexibility at the cost of coherence, maybe. So the decisions might be a bit random compared to what you otherwise might get. Cool. So this gives us actually a bunch of different stems, as we call them, and they are adhocracy, clan, hierarchy, and market. So let me very quickly describe what they are. So an adhocracy is something where you come together or you make things happen in the moment. And this is about innovation and creation, being creative and entrepreneurial. So you can think of this as maybe some design agencies, marketing agencies, architectural companies, where being unique, being first, being there with something is very important. The quality of new ideas. Getting new ideas for the sake of innovation. Innovation is a value in itself, right? A bit of experimentation, but generally think of it as a creative agency of sorts. The clan is turning inwards, so we still have flexible teams, flexible people, but we are concerned about our colleagues as friends, as almost as family members, and we want to spend time on developing our people. Typical examples are consulting companies like, well, for example, Agile 42, because every customer that we have is different. It means that we don't really know what they are going to bring, and so we need to have capable people who can take different customers and work with them and get good stuff done, okay? So you will find many consulting companies that are fitting very nicely in the clan culture. Also, for some reason, customer support is another place where you don't know when people call in to your phone line, I have a problem with your product, it doesn't do what you describe it to do. Then you need to have capable people who are able to answer or who are able to capture this, ask their colleagues, what does this mean? What should I answer here? And then over time they will learn about these things. So that's the clan, and it's focused on people. You see how it's internally focused, not on ideas from outside, but on people inside. Now, if we stick to the left-hand side, but we slip down to stability and control, and we move over to the hierarchy, cultural stem. Hierarchy is about this is the typical big bank or big manufacturing company where you have regulations, you have safety issues, safety standards that you need to maintain. There's a lot of external limitations on what you can do, but also internal limitations. And this is about doing excellence comes from high quality, okay? And the way to high quality is to have standardized processes, standardized roles. You have you need to monitor and obviously audit that people are following those processes. If you take this to the extreme, this is like the organization is a big machine consisting of roles and processes. Maybe that's embodied in tools, and then you use people to do the tricky bits that you can't automate yet. Okay, just to draw it to a very kind of extreme conclusion. Most companies are not that far towards hierarchy, so you will find that there is people are allowed to do a lot of different things. However, there is a focus in big banks, for example. It tends to be a focus on kind of having centralized systems where you and checks and balances that people are not allowed to do things that the company will have to pay for later. The final one is the market here in the bottom right hand corner, and think of it like, you know, Coca-Cola, Pepsi-Cola. So you are fighting hard for customers, you are fighting hard for every single percentage point of the market. And you are competing, you are, the value here is being the best, having the largest market share. So you would you would have maybe a boss who is a pace setter, saying, okay, you know, we need to achieve this. We need to have 10 millions in sales for this quarter, and then we need to achieve it in this way, and push people to get stuff done. So and the control factor here comes from, for example, you have similar tools, you're selling the same products, you have sales quotas that are shared, you have a country sales quota, and so on. We have different dimensions or different perspectives here. One is leadership, the leadership style that you would find. You have the entrepreneur, the guy who is up here in the right-hand corner. You have the person who is lifting up new ideas and trying to make money out of them, but by being first, basically, by offering something unique. Obviously, in the clan corner, you would have a team builder, somebody who is social and interested in people. Down here, you would have the monitor who is standing at the back of the big room, observing everyone, looking, are you doing the right kind of things? And the hard driver down here. Orientation means what kind of tools, what kind of processes, what kind of, how do we do our work? And so you can see again, creative, you have collaborative approaches. Down in hierarchy, you would have a coordinating or controlling approach, and in market competition, even internal competition sometimes. The salesman of the week, salesperson of the week gets a bonus or something like that. Effectiveness simply means what do we believe makes us effective. And the same here, we have innovation, growth, perfection, high quality, and then quick wins and profit, obviously. And the value drivers, those are the ones that are lagging and the ones that are we could most identify with the word culture. So we put some value in experimentation, people development, excellence, excellent processes, excellent tools, and then simply being the best in this case here in the market corner. Typically, leadership is the leading one. So you would see that the way the leader is interacting with the teams is setting the tone for the whole culture. And or if that follows, the next step typically is the way people are doing the work. So they're oriented, how we are oriented towards our work. From that follows how we understand effectiveness, from basically the practical stuff we do. And then the value drivers are kind of the last to tag along. So if you want to see change in this system over time, you would need to start with the leaders and the orientation, and they need to be in sync. And then you can, over time, you will see that the understanding of effectiveness is kind of following along, and then finally the values or the value drivers. Pascal, you have your hand up. Is that a? Just checking. Cool. So that's about the competing values framework. Now, there's lots of these OKIs, culture assessment instruments. Okay. This is one that we like because it's, first of all, it's grounded in research. So Cameron and Quinn have done their homework, right? So we can trust it in some way. Secondly, both Cameron and Quinn are still using this framework. It's been validated in research, and many other OKs are they are created for a purpose, and then they are not found valid, and then they disappear, or maybe the authors move on to another framework, or they move on to something else. But in this case, Cameron and Quinn, they are standing behind this, and it's not new. I think it's from the 90s, so 20 years plus. Well established, and yeah, it's open, so you can use it. Also, the questionnaire, the assessment is open, and that's why we find that the competing values framework is the best tool for this kind of work that we are doing now, agile transitions.
Actually, I imagine the book on the left of this frame. And the link to Amazon, if somebody wants to have more information, then have a look there. And it's like Kim Cameron and Robert Quinn.
Yes.
Martin, back to you.
Thank you. Then just a couple of words. I've been speaking now for a little while, but I'll speak a little bit more. A couple of words about different situations and different cultures. So as you might imagine, this is not now the Crossing the Chasm by Geoffrey Moore, and I can see that I have made a spelling mistake. It should have a double O here. More is more, double O there. Now, different situations. This is a variant of the innovation diffusion or dissipation curve. And what this means is that innovations start out with a bunch of early adopters and innovators. The difference here is that innovators are in it just for novelty. Okay, here's something new. Let's prod it a little bit. Let's hack it a little bit and see what happens. The early adopters are seeing the value. They see that this is a differentiator. This can make us different. This can be super useful, and so they are willing to take it in. Whatever the mad scientist in the corner has come up with, or in the basement has come up with, we can use this for something. And so they pull it in. They are even sometimes willing to invest money. It's not really a product yet, but this is the way for the mad scientist, the early innovator, to understand that what might customers need. So there is a chance of co-creation here. Early majority is when those guys actually expect a product. So they can also see the value, and that's why they are early in picking these things up, but they are expecting a shrink wrap product that they can pull off the shelf, maybe customize it a bit, I don't know. They expect a manual, a handbook, they expect to get some customer support, All of that is already starting to be there. The late majority is picking it up because frankly everyone else is using it, and the laggards couldn't care less. They'll get there eventually. So what we wanted to point out here is that in different situations you might have different cultures, and obviously this is self-evident even to me. Innovators and early adopters would have an adhocracy culture, right? Especially the innovators. So new ideas are super important, okay? And that's what we, oh, thanks, Pascal. So that's the kind of culture you would find. As you move on to the early adopters and the early majority, you find that when you are trying to cater to the early adopters, but you don't have a shrink wrap product yet, and you don't know the next early adopter who is calling you, you don't actually know what they want specifically. So you need to co-create it with them. And that's when you would need a clan culture. You need capable people so that they can pick up this idea and go like, that's interesting, you know. So you want to use our product for this purpose. Yes, well, that could fit. Let's see what we can do about it. And then you collaborate with the customer, you pull the customer in, become one of your team or one part of your family, extended family, and then you can get stuff done. Now, then as you move over to the kind of shrink wrapped product, that's when your culture, you would need a more kind of a hierarchical culture, okay? So that means that you would need to set up factories, you would need to have a chief or factory head, factory manager. You probably need to have a CFO, you need to have a proper CEO. You can no longer work in a group of 20, 25 people, capable people who can sit down and reasonably agree on what is important and what to do next. So you need to start moving into a hierarchical culture. And that means adding centralized systems, adding dashboards, running a factory using lean principles. And it's not so much now, it requires a different mindset, basically. And then when you enter the late majority, that's the Pepsi Cola, Coca-Cola, those products are mature. Let me tell you that. Those products, they are, what have they innovated over the last 100 years? Well, they are maybe improving their production processes. But basically, it's all about marketing, okay? And you need, obviously, a market-oriented culture. You have salespeople who are trying to gain, 0.0001% of the market. So you are calling up, you're going around to different restaurants saying, hey, wouldn't you like to switch, Pepsi sucks, Coca-Cola is great, or the other way around, depending. So that's what kind of a culture you would like to have then in the late majority and the laggards. So that's what's happening basically. And now this is also highlighting the problem. If you have a hierarchical culture, you're catering to the early majority or perhaps the late majority already, or at least the middle here. And then you need to become innovative. And so scooting back here to the left, so you are in a solid hierarchical culture. Let's say you're a big bank and you have all the systems. Your boss is checking that you are following the rules and that you are doing the work as expected. And then suddenly you need to be innovative. How does that work out? It doesn't. It's that's why this is the competing values, because you can't at the same time have an internal focus and try to have an external focus and pick up ideas. It's super difficult for an engineer or for somebody who is in an IT department somewhere deep in R&D, and you have like 5 different people between you and the actual live customer. And then you are supposed to go out there and listen to your customer and pick up these ideas and start experimenting. It's just not going to happen. The step is too far. It's too wide. So that's what we are seeing. That's the problems generally that people are seeing. And now, having said all of this, I think we need to move down to the big to ask you to copy your stuff in, and we are going to do a little debrief from exercise 2, and then we are going to jump into what can we do about all of this. Okay? Any questions now about the competing values framework, what it means and how it works, how the different culture stems, clan, adhocracy, hierarchy, and market, how they work, what they are about, how they differ from each other? Now would be a great time to ask some questions before we start debriefing exercise 2 and then look at how we can use these things to actually make changes to a company culture. Any questions? Laura.
Hello. I'm looking at this the chart, and it's very clear these stages when we are talking about somebody working on a new product that goes to external customers, for example. How would that adapt to teams that are organizations that are working with an internal customer? Right? Let's say one organization servicing the bigger organization, you know, the mother company or something like that.
Okay, good question. Looking at the big picture, who would you, in order to create maximum value for your company, would you like to work with internal customers or external customers?
I think each of these actually creates value, but in a different way. So,
possibly yes. So, but generally, companies need to identify what their customers are, where their customers are, and who they are. You can do that in different ways, and then you would like to reorganize yourselves in such a way that you can you have teams that can work to produce value. We talk about cross-functional teams. We are talking about having direct contact, instant feedback with your customers, with the people who pay you money. And if that is internal money, the company is moving kind of money from pocket to pocket inside the company, then that's not really going to bring in more profit, right? So generally, I would like to rephrase the question, and I'll come back to your exact question in a moment, but I would just like to put this in perspective and say that generally, whenever I hear that we have one team in the company delivering something to another team in the company, then it's always a signal that things are not as they should be. Now we have support teams. There's like IT. There might be finance, legal, HR. There might be others who are kind of providing services to other teams. But if you are providing components, then I would be very, very careful. Let's say inside an IT department, and one team is building the database, and then another team is building other stuff on top. Then you have dependencies, and the database guys are just one more step removed from the actual live mythical customer that they have never seen. However, that said, you will find probably that inside a company, if you are in a big company like a bank, for example, that the general culture might be hierarchical, but you might find that the teams themselves might be clan-ish, that people are working, you know, we are a little family working on the COBOL systems or whatever, and maybe the databases. And so we need to be capable, we need to understand, have the capabilities to do changes that we have not necessarily anticipated. Other teams are going to request from us, you know, we do this and we do that, and we need to sit down and think together on how this works. It might also be a hierarchical situation where you have one head of the team who is saying, okay, there has been this request, I'll hand it over to Laura because you know exactly how this is going to be done, and then you do it, okay? So you would not probably see much adhocracy and market in that situation, those cultures, but yeah, I hope I answered your questions.
yes, thank you very much.
Thanks. Good. Let's scoot on down to this debrief. So what I would like you to do if you have a screenshot handy, and I saw some people were copying in the screenshots previously, then please put it down here, put it in one of these places, approximately where the center of this little four corner thingy is. If you don't have a handy picture, you can just take a sticky note and pull it in and put it where you feel it belongs. So let's just take a minute to do that. I'll clear it out and I'll open the board to everyone. Please put a mark where it makes sense for you to be positioned.
Actually, I can move the ones from the top.
That's good.
So
I'll just
get an understanding.
But we are quite strongly up here. Teamwork, so I'll put Agile 42 here. Okay, let me adjust the view. One thing that I typically like to do in these cases is to ask people to add just a little bit some note or keyword about what kind of company are you? Are you a big bank? Are you a consulting company? Are you a marketing agency or maybe a sales department? So that would then make it easier. Okay. In this case, so I see 4 different sticky notes in this way. So you are, in this case, the middle point here would be slightly to the left. Okay. So I would put just one sticky note and I would put it approximately here, slightly to the left. So I'm going to remove these other 3. The same goes for IT. Here you are clearly to the right and a little bit above the line. So I would put you probably in that location. So this is what we would like to have, a kind of a central point for each. And this is also how we do it with our tools. When we are doing an assessment using the competing values framework, we are collecting dots as we talk about the dots. And so each kind of assessment survey answer is going to show up as one dot on this big diagram. Cool. So things are still appearing here, but we have an IT department that is being innovative. We have banks on the left. We have consulting and accounting, DevOps and Cloud Competence Center. So we are getting some data points there. Cool. Let me move on and show you some of the examples that we do have and what you can learn from them. So let me first zoom in on, for example, here on the anchor picture. So these are what I'm showing you right now is basically, this is input from results from various clients, and I'm going to keep them anonymous for the obvious reasons. Now, what we are seeing here is movement, and let me explain a little bit. We are seeing that the newer dots, because we ask people to submit this survey over time. So the newer dots are coming here in the Adhocracy corner or up above the line generally, and the older ones, the oldest ones are down here in hierarchy. So this this is an interesting question. How is this going to work out? And we can look at things like, for example, the leadership style, and look at if are these stronger on the leadership style, on a hierarchical leadership style? Are they holding us back, for example? Is the movement generally in up here, and how strong is the movement? How is the culture shifting over time? Now, if we look at it only as a cluster of points, we could also see it in a different direction. That's why it's important to distinguish or separate the old from the new points, because this might also be kind of the new point that the leaders, for example, are creating, are interacting with their teams, and so the new stories popping up are more in this corner. That would then be an anchor for the new change, for the new movement. We have other interesting things. Let me very quickly go through. We have here, for example, leader type is very clannish. For example, we have asked people separately to put a dot for the leader type. And so this is also carried out in here, that basically the team is making a lot of, and individuals are making a lot of decisions, right? Which basically supports this. So this is a way of cross-correlating between, so we can ask them to answer the competing values framework, and we can also then ask them to answer other questions, and we can cross-correlate, and we can see that does this make sense, or are they hiding something, for example, which I think is very important. Another thing I wanted to show you is basically the time taken. This happens to be one organization, so we can look at how fast, how long did it take, and we can cross-correlate that with, and now it seems like I've lost one, well, doesn't matter. We can cross-correlate that with the question about how long does it take to make those decisions. We have positive and negative stories. We ask people, does this make you feel happy or sad? And so we can see, for example, in this case, that time taken is a very strong signifier. It has a strong correlation with the emotions that people have. And in this case, it is a negative correlation. So the shorter the time, the happier the person is about that decision or that particular event in the organization. Tenure has a negative impact. So people who have been longer at the company tend to have more negative stories. And that's an interesting fact that we can look at. Role happen to have then a positive impact, and so on. And we also find things like, this is yet another customer, the emotion, negative, neutral, and positive, and you can see how it, in what way it correlates with the how problematic a situation is. So problematic decisions tend to be seen as negative generally, while not so non-problematic are seen more as positive. And this is a strong correlation. You can see that there's no overlap between here, actually a large gap between the bottom of the negative and the top of the positive. So we can say that with high significance. And there are things like, in yet another client, we had compromising on politics. So when the team leader is making a decision, they have to compromise on politics, but team members don't have to as much, which is interesting in our way. It means that the team leaders are stepping up and doing the work they are expected to do, preventing or stopping politics from affecting people. So this is what I wanted to show you, the different ways, lots of different ways of when you have that information, you can pull it out and you can present it in different ways. You just need a large enough number of answers to your survey so that you can have this, get this done.
So actually we have, for some of our customers, we have developed a software where we do ongoing survey, we collect based on decisions and the feelings of decisions. We what we did, the organizational cultural assessment instrument, we modified it a bit in order to collect those different data points. So think like the instruction is to ask people like within the last week, think of some decisions that have taken place, some situations that have been important for you, and document there what has happened. And that way we could get like every dot in these diagrams that Martin has shown is like one answer on that form. And if we do that like ongoing for few months, then we can see it certain change and move, because that is moving all the time. It's not, no organizations are stable. Yes. I could also say that we had like this what Martin, if you go a bit up on the diagram, we spoke about the competing values. So when we did the exercise 1, and you've seen the results, they were all like a bit higher than 5, like 8, 6, and we had quite high teamwork and quite high market. Those had like both 8. So you cannot be, because those are like competing things, you cannot be on both sides very strong with the same group of people, because there's it is competing. So, and the idea of putting the first exercise was to see that the paradoxon, if you think without knowing the theory and without knowing everything, you might say yes. And I've done it once with some leaders, actually, a workshop, and everybody put 10. We want to be innovative 10, and we want to have a good teamwork 10, and we want to follow a plan 10, and we want to be in the market 10. And then when I explained them the theory, then they were like the aha moment, thinking, okay, yes, this doesn't actually make sense.
Thanks. Thanks for wrapping up exercise number 1.
Yeah,
there's one thing I want to
still do a wrap up on the exercise number 2. I wanted to mention a few things.
Yeah, but can we return to that in a moment?
Yes.
So there's one thing is that we are doing these surveys and assessments, and that's why we have our tool. However, there are many different ways. I just wanted to add that there are many different ways of collecting this information, and you can take, for example, the survey that we had up here. This particular PDF, you can print it out, you can hand it to your team members, okay? And you can do this on your own. So just wanted to point this out and underline it, that this is not limited to our tool. We have a tool because we do this quite a lot, and we have found it so much more convenient. We know what to cross-correlate, what to ask, and we can use this to validate the data in many different ways, which is convenient for us. Okay, so that's what I wanted to add. Cool. Over to Pascal and for the debrief.
Yeah. Do I share my screen or?
Yep, sorry.
Perhaps I do that. And so as you see here, we have been mapping the different things on the bigger board. And you see now we have accounting was before on the top left. Now it moved to more on the market side. But how would you say, like, how would it feel like if you have accounting now being able or needing to collaborate with people, like on the top left being the Agile 42? How well would they be able to correlate if they talk to each other? That would mean, anybody? How would those situations be? Okay. Meaning like the accounting is like more market oriented. They have lots of competition if they are like down there on the right. And they would be like totally different culture and taking different assumptions. So perhaps certain sentences and words and situations, they would be able to correlate with different things compared to people on the competing area they will be. And so communication between the two groups or two people then would be more challenging because there is more room for misunderstanding. So that is something that you can look off. And then if you and you can identify those things here. If we have those examples, we see that we have somebody who is really much process oriented in that organization, somebody is really clan oriented. That is not that problematic because they are like still on the same side. They're not in the competing. They have like one of the parameters being different. If I ask you to move into this example that we have done, that is now a paper version, we have asked people to, what do you see there? And now we are not that many people, so perhaps we can openly discuss on that.
Different groups of people have answered this, and we can see several similar graphs, and then we have different set of also similar graphs. So maybe management versus other people.
I'm most interested in the middle section, if you can call it that way, when as you said, the opposing parts are quite similar, just I mean in the similar direction. So how is that going? Yeah.
It is also indicates that they're not very strong on a certain area. You see here that you are very strong on that area. You cannot have like full points on the opposite parts with that assessment, because you need to divide equally the 100 points.
If I give you a 1 minute summary what this is about, it's actually 3 different companies. And most of them are, most of the people, basically everyone, the top 3 rows are from the same company. They are the leadership team, and they are responsible for different units, different business units and departments. And so you would see that some of them are kind of, yeah, they are in different places, but they are all mostly below the line, which means that they are focused, the company is focused on control. They are either hierarchical or market oriented, depending. And then if you look down, there is the bottom left and the bottom middle, right? Those are from a subcontractor, or it's actually a daughter company. It's not a subcontractor, and they are a startup that was bought out by this big company. And so you can see that the 2 guys there, or the 2 people there, they are clearly above. They are more flexibility and discretion. One of them seems to be a little bit on the top left towards clannish, and the other one slightly to the top right, which is the adhocracy culture.
Yeah.
And then the very bottom right is a person who is, she's the HR director of a subcontractor. And she's done this one before, so she knew exactly what it was about, and they are positioned, because it's a consulting company, they are slightly to the top left, but more balanced than the others. So that's what we have here. And this gives us, when we've done this organizational assessment, it gives us the opportunity to discuss with the people. We smack it up on the wall, and then we can discuss, or we present it nowadays on Zoom, and we can have decent discussions with the leaders. Is this what you expect? You want your people to become more innovative, but every damn leader is focused on focused on control. So how do you want to make your people more flexible? And that is an eye opener for them. And in this case, we had the 2 guys from the startup who were able to chip in and say, yes, we are doing it differently. We have a different culture. And also the HR person was able to chip in. Cool, sorry, and let me hand over back to Pascal.
Okay, but that is something like to start discussion, as Martin said, and having the eye openers, and then we want based on that to see then and help them understand in what way they want to go. How do you think, how would somebody be able to develop like over time? You probably cannot go from following a plan all the way to innovation directly like this way. You need to go like from the neighboring quadrant. So either you go and increase more the collaboration and become more flexible and go like over the teamwork and become first like a clan company, and then you move to the innovation if you want to be a more innovative company. Or you do it then the other way, that you go more towards the market and look into that, and then from the market go all the way to the innovation.
Yeah, this comes from, it's difficult to change many things at once, right? Yeah. So it's easier to change just one thing, maybe add flexibility, a little small steps at a time, and then you can add a kind of external focus or try to nudge people towards external focus.
Yeah. And as we've discussed here on further up on this diagram, there might be even inside a company like different areas, different products, and somebody working on the old product, then might need really to have more like a different culture, because the product curve might be like declining here. And then people who work on the new products, they need to be then more in the adhocracy and try to experiment and do new things. What is the challenge for the companies, of course, when you are here on the top, to have new products to then boost and go further up. That would be the ideal thing. Yes. Do you think we need to add anything on the debrief on this exercise?
No, I think I feel that we are good on this. And I think it's time to look into the future, right?
Yes.
Should I talk a little bit about organizational change? And when I say a little bit, I mean a little bit.
I stop sharing. You can take that then.
Yes. There we are. And let's go to Miro and see what we have. Cool. So everything we do is based on the Cynefin model. If you're familiar with the Cynefin model it's a framework actually, complexity and specifically complex adaptive systems. And the general concept behind everything we do is that organizations are complex. They are changing all the time. There's lots of components inside which are interacting in different ways. It's difficult to predict the outcome. You try to do something and then it might end up in a different way. Okay, so you might introduce a change and then people are reacting in different ways than you anticipated. So we need to use complex management tools for handling this. And that means nudging the organization, trying to change it in a different small ways. We can modulate the connections. So we cannot actually go in. I cannot go in and tell a specific single individual that, you need to think this way or you need to act this way. It's not certain to work and it's not scalable. So what we need to do is we want to set up a system where the certain connections work are easier to do in a certain way, and other connections are harder to do in another way. Okay, and this is all summed up in the words of more of this and less of that. So we need to observe the organization. We need to figure out what is good and make it easy for people to do more of the good stuff. So do the right things and do them right. And then we want to do less of the so-called bad stuff or things that don't result in the value we want, or don't give the results we want to have. And we want less of that. So we want to make it difficult to do the wrong things, and we also want to make it difficult to do things wrong, generally. So the way I kind of imagine it in my own little way is that the organization is like an amoeba, or it's like a cluster of people working together, and there are links between people. There's a boundary, there's an inside and an outside. And sometimes the organization is kind of finding its own shape over time. And that shape is determined based on the amount of energy inside. So if you have a very passive group of people, they are probably just going to flop down where they are, and the shape is not going to expand much, or things are not going to have, they are not taking advantage of new stuff or new opportunities. They are not expanding in one direction because they don't have any pressure to do so. You might also have situations where there's too much pressure and people are trying to basically they are bouncing off each other. It's like having a pot of soup. So if you turn up the heat, if you don't have any heat, nothing happens. If you have too much heat, it burns. So and you need to find the right amount of pressure, the right amount of peer pressure and kind of energy, and help people expand and help people find these. Now, there are things that prevent you from expanding, like I drew it here like a brick wall. It's something that stops the organization. You cannot really expand in this direction because something is there stopping you. When you try to move, it's there. We might have flexible. I tried to draw some springs down here. We might have something that is transparent, difficult to see. It's ceramic maybe, or is a good idea. A good metaphor. So you push it and you push it, it doesn't flex, and then suddenly it breaks and it's broken. And then you might be able to go there, or you might realize that you don't want to go there. And you need to reconstruct it again, that same barrier. And there might be barriers like the one here, which is which you think are there. There's been a barrier there forever. And it's just we are not going there because it doesn't make any sense to go there. And the barrier has evaporated, or things have changed. There's a new legal system, or there's your competitor is struggling, but you think that your competitor is still there, so you are not trying to push them out of the way. Okay, so this is how I see it, and there needs to be a certain amount of energy in the system so that it kind of tries to expand in the right directions. The way we do this is by attractors and barriers mostly. So we try to add attractors. Attractors are something that make it easier for people to get things done. We make it attractive for people to do the right kind of stuff. So that's it might be, for example, if you want people to talk socially, then you might want to introduce a kitchen or a sofa corner where they can meet, and maybe a video game and stuff. And those are attractors for just getting together to relax and to get acquainted. And that might have some implications down the line. Another attractor is if you want to make it easy for people to discuss, for example, the strategy of the company. Then you would take a whiteboard and you would put up the strategy there, and you would make it easy for people to talk about that strategy. Maybe every Monday morning at 9 o'clock or 8:30, somebody from the leadership team will be hanging around there with a cup of coffee and be happy to answer questions. And that is an attractor for dissipating strategy. Okay, barriers prevent people from doing stuff you don't want them to do. In an IT company, you might have automated testing. That's a barrier for submitting low quality code. Simple as that. Or if you want, you can also have physical barriers like doors or an office that is difficult to navigate. And that makes it clear that for people that they are not expected to actually collaborate. Identity is, who are we? Are we the kind of people who pick up trash from the floor to keep the office clean, or are we the kind of people who we're basically like, it's not my problem. There's a piece of trash on the floor, and the cleaning lady comes tomorrow to pick it up. I don't need to care about these things. And similarly, if I'm coding away and I see a bug, or I realize I've introduced a bug, do I take the time to fix it, or do I submit it to our bug system, our bug management system, or do I just leave it for the testers to pick it up? It's not my problem. What kind of identity do you have? Diversity is a way of introducing pressure. Diverse people will bring in new ideas, and they will bounce off each other. if you want to have more pressure and more kind of dynamics in your company, then increase the diversity. Have people with different backgrounds, different genders, different ages, doing different roles, all of that diversity is bringing in, if you manage it in a good way, it brings in energy in your company. And then environment is actually it's a catch-all for anything else. It's the things that are outside to some extent are the things that you can maybe participate in modifying a new version of some regulation in such a way that this hard brick wall here becomes something different, or it's moved a little bit so that you can expand. So that's why environment is there. But the key is more of this and less of that. And that's what we are perhaps taking a look at now. There's a couple of ways of making these improvements. One is to introduce rituals. That's where Scrum and Agile comes in. It gives you a very fast feedback loop. If you compare to the traditional way where your projects are like 3 years long, then there's not so much. If you have a project kickoff every 3 years, then that's a ritual that it doesn't become a ritual because people are not seeing enough of it. But if you have a sprint planning meeting every 2 weeks, then you will have an excellent chance. When you have had 20 of those or even 10 of those, then people are starting to understand this as a ritual. They know what's going to happen. They come in, they go through the motions. That makes them part of that. That becomes a cornerstone of the culture. Storytelling is mostly about putting things in the right way. It's also about choosing the right words, helping people understand the world in the way you want to see. The easy example is, for example, failure versus learning experience. So how do you frame it? We didn't succeed. Do you frame it as a failure, and that then follows blame shifting? You would fire somebody or give them penalties or whatever, or do you frame this as a learning opportunity? Okay, we just invested 100,000 euros in basically learning about who we are. And also this is also about collecting history. So collecting the kind of stories and promoting the kind of stories that people tell. Have you heard about Peter? Where is he? He was supposed to work on this project, but we haven't seen him for 3 weeks. And then the story emerges about Peter and what he did and why he's not working on this anymore and so on. And the question is, what kind of stories do people tell, and what kind of stories would you like them to tell? So that's also something you can affect. And then identity, storytelling, and rituals are a great way of building identity. What kind of people are we in this company? Right. That was 10 minutes, I suppose, but 10 important minutes. Would you like Pascal to pick up the experiment canvas?
Yes, I can do that.
I'll stop sharing. People can see your cursor.
Yeah, I share because I understood this session is being recorded.
Yep.
So you see my screen. So changes sometimes need to be a bit planned, and the idea is not to do too many things, not to make a big bang change, but focus on doing small things. And often you don't know because it's not something that you have done before and that you can definitely say it will work. You think of some things that you can try out, and the idea is to tell it's an experiment. If it works, it works. That's fine. Then we take it as granted. If it doesn't work, then we can roll back again. Experiments in that sense are very good to tell people and share with them. This is not forever. We will try it out. And it is good to define the experiment as such and decide what you want to do. That is the description here. And in order to conceptualize the experiment, it's good to have a canvas so that you have the main things written down and they're like visible and understandable by everybody. In this canvas, that's an example that you could use. You mainly try, okay, what do we want to learn as an organization? What do we want to where do we want, what experience do we want to have after the experiment is done? Do we want to learn something? So you write here the learning objectives. Would that work? Would that help us and bring us further or not? You can add something on the background information and in what context that experiment is like taking place, perhaps certain description of how you want to carry out the experiment, what things are you trying out, what actions, and then what would be the success conditions after a certain time. It's good to put an end date for the experiment because then experiments that last forever in a way are not anymore experiments, so that you come back and evaluate. So what are the success conditions and what are the failure conditions? And how do you identify? You might have like metrics on identifying the success conditions and the failure conditions. You have metrics that you can put like leading indicators that indicate you that you are going to the right direction, and then lagging indicators after the change has happened that you really know that that has happened. And then you can have what actions do you want to do if you see that this is working like fine in order to strengthen the change. Those are called amplifying actions. And if you see that it doesn't work well, the experiment, how can you like soften perhaps negative effects like dampening actions? What would be like your spring to bump away from those actions? But that's an example of how to do an experiment canvas. I've seen also other experiment canvas, but that's the one we try to use with our customers. Are there any questions to this? Good.
Actually, we have not a question, but maybe a notice. It kind of reminds me of a lean, how to say, lean card where you put suggestions on how to improve work.
Yes. The canvases quite often are very similar, and the idea of most of the canvases is to have kind of a guidance of what you need to write, and perhaps mainly also don't be writing too much, but limit everything on a piece of paper. Is it like A4 or a smaller piece of paper, but that you write the main things. They're like A3 problem-solving canvases and project description canvases. Yesterday I spoke about the project canvas. So yeah.
So this is, I might add that typically these ideas start out as one post-it. Basically, wouldn't it be nice if we tried this? Or I think it would be useful to do these things, but they are uncertain to lead to the right results. And so you decide to make this into an experiment. And that means you need to invest a little bit of time in drawing up this experiment canvas. It helps if you have more people. The more people who can contribute, the better the ideas are. And also you get kind of instant buy-in and also collective blame taking. You know, if it fails, then because everyone was of the opinion that this was a good idea at the time, and then it fails, it's like, well, we take that that information and that lessons learned. Okay, and then at some point you should have several of these. You can commit to one at a time, start doing it, and then following along the results, and then failure conditions. If you see failure, impending failure, things are, you know, not going well with this experiment, kill it immediately. No need to go through the motions and follow it for the full 2 months or whatever, and then you are like, oh well, it didn't work. You just kill it immediately and pick the next one from the list.
Yeah, and in the past, when we've been working with the customers physically, we have been like drawing this up on a flip chart, and then people were putting post-its. now how it looks like when using Miro or other similar tools that the customer prefers, then the post-its might be put here, like as I've done in this case. We're collecting ideas, and then you collect first ideas, and then you might like go and have like the more final version of that.
Yeah. So as a canvas, this is self-contained. So you can take this, you can show it to your team or whoever and say, this is what I would like to try. You can take it to your boss and say, here's my plan or my ideas. Can you give me some money or resources so I can buy these things? And generally, this is a pretty good tool. And I've seen it in many ways for just a Scrum Masters drawing this up together with the line manager and then coming to the team and saying, hey guys, I have this. We have also seen organizations that do this as a collaborative effort, and they have a number of these going on. They have a backlog, they are constantly improving and building new and working on it. It's like applying Kanban on your organization or applying the framework and having an improvement board with experiments. And sometimes you don't need to experiment. Sometimes you can just, plan and do. It's like we need to have training, agile training. What do we do? Well, we have 80 people. Let's organize 4 trainings. Let's fish around for the best trainer, and then you get it done. It's not something you need to experiment much with.
Like the last experiment I've done last week with a customer was we want to have more collaborative people, like talking more and providing more input in meetings. And as everybody's remote, then we said, okay, we do it this way, that the experiment is we start using Miro with them. There were other options also, but then we ended up in Miro. So that way everybody can, if he doesn't want to talk, he can at least write a post-it and collaborate and contribute and bring up the idea in that way. So now we're going through and we have put some expectations, what we want to see. And if it doesn't work well and people are not happy, then we ditch it again. We stop doing that. Okay. We are almost done. I would like you to take a moment and think, what are the key things you take away? And write them down, and what were the important things from this workshop, what you take with you. That will help you perhaps also remember, and perhaps you give also some hints to the other participants of what was important points in this workshop.
Oh, thank you, Martin. I can see you did my job, actually. Yes, so thank you for a really good Photoshop. I tried to follow that as much as I was able to. And I would like to remind for everybody to leave feedback about our speakers and this workshop session.
Yes. And we would like to ask for... Oh, yeah, sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
How you shortly explain what Agile coach does to your eldest relative, given she doesn't know anything about Agile.
Do you want to, or should I?
My eldest
Okay.
relative has been in the home for elderly people, being 102 years old, and passed away two weeks ago. But that was so old relative, I could not talk about my work because it was a total different generation. But if I take my mother, then I tell them that I work with teams and try to make teams work more reasonable together, and organizations do more like things that create value and remove the waste that they have. And there are different ways on doing that.
Removing
I don't know.
confusion and increase visibility into what's happening.
Yeah. Good. We can quickly have a look on the scrolling.
Where are you scrolling now?
Thank you for the takeaways. Take a moment perhaps to read what your peers have written here. And before leaving over all the workshops, I want to thank you for your participation and providing the input. Hopefully it was useful. You can get in touch with us afterwards if you have any other ideas come up, or get in touch with us then through email or other means. The organizers collect feedback through menti.com and with that code, but feel free also to add feedback here on this frame with some post-its.
For us, specifically.
That would be your exit ticket from this workshop.
Yes, and we can take harsh criticism. We can take it on the chin. If you have any negatives, keep it coming.
Yeah, and I've already noted down on myself things we could improve from our side.
Yes.
Thank you again, and I would like to ask, could you do me like a host before leaving this session?
Of course.
Yes.
Not necessary now, but
yeah.
Thank you.
If you put some words there also, that would be really useful. Then we know.
Maybe you can move away from this particular frame, move up to the previous frame, and so we can look at the takeaways while people write the feedback. Sending slides to employees with the corporate culture. Yeah. How well does that ever work out? Printing posters on the walls doesn't help either much.
Unfortunately, my company did that. Print some posters with corporate values.
And then they are asking you in the every year that to kind of do in a survey to say how much are you aligned with their values, right?
No, they just came up with the values 2 years ago and posted them and just remind from time to time that we should follow them, and that's it.
Okay. Usually they are not bad values, but then typically managers don't follow them, or the managers don't use them themselves, and then it kind of falls flat.
Yeah, I would agree. The values, at least we posted, are quite good and valuable, I would say. It's just I'm not sure that they are really what they are. How to say? Are they from far away from reality?
I actually had a thought about the amoeba image that you had. And one question in my mind, as I always think that culture comes directly from the leader. and he impacts the culture very much, as Gediminas says, that you can't just post like stick post-its with culture. How does this in Amoeba work? Is the leader the outside force, or is he like, I don't know how it works actually?
Okay, so the leader decides who is in and who is out, basically. So there needs to be somebody who is deciding where the boundary is and who is part of our team or part of our company and who is not. So they can, if there are people who are creating too much friction, then some leaders can just kick them out, and others can pull them in and help them find a place, and other leaders can just make use of that friction to generate ideas, for example.
Okay.
But I see this as the leaders are inside mostly, I would say. They have a limited perspective. They are also blind to some of these. So there's, in this amoeba picture, there's space to expand towards the bottom and towards the top. But maybe, and the organization is trying to squeeze kind of towards the top. Maybe in this case, this could show that they want to enter a new market, or maybe have new products or new customers or something like that. But at the bottom, nobody seems to be kind of pushing that way. Yeah. So they are having a blind spot. And if you are outside, you might be able to see things, but if you are inside, which most leaders are, then it's difficult to see things. And that's part of what the leader needs to do. If you are digging in and really taking, dirtying your hands with the actual work, picking up the spade and start to dig and so on, then you don't have time to look outside too much. And that's important for a leader to actually look at the strategy and look at what are we trying to do? Where are the barriers? What are the boundaries? Where should we try to go? That's called strategy.
Yes. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you. And thank you for your feedback. And also just a small note that there is a discount offer for participants of Agile Tour Vilnius for our training offering. Normally, I'm not a trainer, but my colleagues would then be giving you, and you will be able to see there. And this is the place where you can find out the training. Just to have mentioned that also. If there are no more questions, thank you very much. And I think we are done.
Thank you.
So,
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I'll pass over the host rights to stop sharing and pass the, let's see, do I find it? So was it Gabriele?
Yes.
Now you are moving, one moment. Make host.
So thank you, everyone. If you have any questions, let us know. You know where to reach us. We had at the very top of this Miro board, we have our contact information.
Yeah, and we will leave this Miro board open for some time, and then you will be able to have a look there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay,
cool.
Thanks
you,
everyone. And have a nice rest of the day.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
So I guess we go back to the main session then for the closing of the conference.
Yes.
Let's do that.
Agree.
Okay. See you there in a moment. Bye-bye.